No fucking way. No, I'm not working with this guy. I've been there, done that.
Hey, the minute he gets involved, you can kiss goodbye to any finesse because She-Hulk here only knows how to smash.
Yeah, Mr. Arson here only knows how to blow shit up.
The fact is...
And the fact is...
No offense.
Oh, no offense.
This guy's a real arsehole.
That's, some bitch in your native tongue.
That'd be wanker in your native tongue.
You finished blubbering? You sound like a giant tattooed baby.
You know what? I'm not listening to this horse shit. I got a job to do. Tell your mom I said hi. Actually, I'll tell her myself.
Don't you ever talk about my mother, I'll put your head through that wall. Secondly, I'll have this job done while you're still putting on your baby oil. Good luck, Slick.
Do you expect me to talk?
Hello everybody and welcome to episode 183 of Do You Expect Us to Talk? I'm your host Becca and as always joined by my fellow co-drivers Chris and Dave. How are you both?
Good evening, folks.
Good evening, everyone.
Got no witty repartee at the moment.
I couldn't think of one. That's like last week. I just could not think of one. Maybe I'm just tired. Maybe I'm losing my grip. I don't know. Maybe I just need to
It could just be this film's fucking self-satirizing. It doesn't need a lot of input from us.
I mean,
No.
the only thing I could think of was like sort of staring David in the face, just sort of like, you know, exchanging insults, and I don't really want to do that. So it's like...
No, it's not particularly nice, is it?
Yeah. Running down this side of the building wouldn't yeah.
No, imagine you're being chased by a superhuman Idris Elba.
Yeah.
But
Right.
I'm sure we'll rip, you know,
Oh, yeah, there you are.
from when you spine.
Yeah. Well, I don't think I can quite get away with saying I'm Black Superman. So.
Oh dear. Right, moving on.
I've only fought Superman once in a comic book. Totally plausible.
Well, there we are. It could happen.
It's not likely now. One of them's fictional and the other one's dead.
Yeah, exactly. That was meant to be sarcasm in my voice.
My
though.
money's on that not happening.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen, really.
Mm.
I was being sarcastic.
We're at the end of another series. It shows you how fast, like, lockdown
Furious.
is going. I can't believe we're at the end of another series. It's just like
This series has gone by fast and furiously.
It has. I was waiting for ages to get to the good one, and then we just shot past them. But then I suppose we've had no breaks in this series, whereas like John Wick, we took a couple of months off. Yeah.
We did, yes, but yeah, this time we've been back on full throttle and yeah, firing on all cylinders. So we've been able to rattle through this
Pedal
as
to the
quickly
metal.
as we possibly can. Pedal to the metal. Yeah. Anything else? Any other?
Yeah, so the series perhaps comes screeching to a halt, and then and we'll swing into action with Spider-Man. How's that?
There we are. Well done.
Absolutely. I can't manage to cram in-car entertainment system into a one-liner anywhere.
I think you did that. That one was going in the trailer, Chris. I think that's fantastic.
You must have very low hopes for what's coming in the rest of this show if you think that's trailer worthy. Fucking hell.
We'll get our spidey senses tingling and we'll cue in all the spidey puns.
I hope you're just wet with anticipation now, listeners. Anyway, yeah, we got a bomb commentary first before we go on to Spider-Man anyway.
Oh, yes.
Which we'll announce at the end of it.
Can't wait. Yes, can't wait to
Chris
find out
is
which one you've
Chris-
chosen.
Well, we know because we told us last week off air and I've
Secret.
downloaded it.
Shh. Our listeners don't know yet.
Yeah, I know, but we don't have to pretend we don't talk to each other off air.
Spoil the mystery. Oh my god.
We're not fighting for like Rod, Jane, and Freddie's audience. Give them a bit of credit.
Oh.
So yeah, we got a Bond commentary, which Chris will announce at the end, and so it's the end of the Fast and Furious series until next year. Tell us about tonight's.
Yeah, so tonight, as you may have guessed, we are reaching the current end of the Fast and Furious series as we review Fast and Furious presents Hobbs and Shaw, starring Dwayne Johnson, Jason Statham, Idris Elba, Melissa Kirby, Eddie Martin, and I'm going to mispronounce these names, so excuse me, Aliana Isua, Cliff Curtis, Joe Roman Reigns, Helen Mirren, Rob Delaney, and Ryan Reynolds. Oh, anyway, original music script by Chris Morgan, Drew Pearce, and a story by Chris Morgan, directed by David Leitch, and released 2019.
Yeah.
I'm really sorry, I'm just going to mess up all the Samoan names, so I do apologise.
You did okay. Well, actually, normally you apologise before getting it perfectly correct. That's probably the first time in a long time where I've gone, yeah,
Actually, it's this.
she was struggling with that a bit, wasn't she? So Tyler Bates doing the music for this film. So another change. I think he's first time. Yeah, it's his first time sort of on the series, and he's just been in and around. Well, he's done just everything. If you have a look, I don't know if anything specific stands out. He's done good and bad, like most musicians. I mean, he did the Sylvester Stallone Get Carter remake, and Half Past Dead with Steven Seagal.
I don't think I've seen that.
But he did the Dawn of the Dead remake, the Zack Snyder film, Devil's Rejects. Quite a lot of horror. He did 300, so he's obviously a bit of a Zack Snyder guy because he did Watchmen. He did some of the music for Grindhouse, but it was just the segments, the fake trailers. He did, he's worked with Rob Zombie, he's worked with Zack Snyder. They're the main two that are sort of sticking out to me as I go through.
Kind of in the horror thriller camp.
He did work on Guardians of the Galaxy, although when anyone thinks of that film, they think of the source music. And unsurprisingly, because of this film, he did work on John Wick. In fact, he worked on the first 2 John Wick films by the look of it, and Atomic Blonde, Deadpool 2, so he's definitely got sort of a link to this director and Chad Stahelski as well. In fact, he did do John Wick 3, looking at it. So, yeah, those were his 2 films last year, actually, so both things we've covered in the last few weeks. Not sure how much the score stood out for me, but there you go.
I mean, he's quite a competent guy. I mean, he did obviously John Wick, so I think he kind of knows what he's doing. I think it's at the very least serviceable.
Absolutely. So I'm drinking water, folks. And cinematographer this time has worked also with David Leitch on Atomic Blonde, Deadpool 2, John Wick. He worked on Law Abiding Citizen with F. Gary Gray, last week's director. So yeah, we're in reasonably competent hands here. In fact, of all the people we've just named, Drew Pearce is one of the writers. He's done loads of stuff. Iron Man's the first thing that springs to mind, but he also wrote on Rogue Nation. So I suppose in some respects, David Leitch is probably the least experienced of the sort of top team on this.
Yeah.
But I would say best known for John Wick, but not really, because he wasn't credited, was he?
No, that's true actually.
No, it was. I think it was some sort of like legality issue that they both directed it, but I don't know, not in any official sense. I don't know. I'm not entirely sure why, but
yeah, it's always said that they co-directed it, but those credits are there for a reason. So who knows? Atomic Blonde is probably the other high-profile thing from recent years. I mean, Deadpool was an established property. He had to come in and pick up from Tim Miller.
Yes.
I'm always tempted to say Tim Story, but that was the guy to Barbershop and the fucking Fantastic Four films. Slight difference in talent level. And I didn't really like Deadpool 2 anyway, but I think a lot of that is the joke was just done for me. I think I've said this on Cinematronics episodes with Chris before, that I've got nothing against Deadpool, and the first one made me laugh quite hard. But once, do you know what I mean? The film has no rewatch value. And when we got to the second one and they're actually trying to give him like an emotional arc, it's like, oh, fucking give up, guys. And I just didn't like it that much. So that really leaves Atomic Blonde, which is one really good action sequence. And at the end of the film, the promise of like a better sequel if it had done well, once she could like be herself. But most of the film was Charlize Theron sort of chain smoking and being really, really flat again. So I wasn't in love with that film either, but he's clearly competent technically. I think that's fair to say, isn't it?
Yeah. It's I don't know. I mean, he doesn't really. Well, I suppose this is kind of like his mark on making kind of sort of very, very loud, flashy, but kind of just average action blockbusters. Really, I think the Charlie Theron one, I can't remember, the Atomic Blonde, that kind of sold itself as like kind of a bit of John Wick, and it had a bit more to it, though. Something about that, I can't remember. I need to rewatch it, but something about that film just sort of fell a bit flat, or it just felt a bit.
What's this? Atomic Blonde.
Yeah. In terms of that, in terms of the action, so when you think John Wick, you think action, so you think, okay, well, they're gonna get like the action stuff right, and in a way he does, but there's just nothing like that remarkable about what I've seen from Deadpool 2 and this film. I mean, it's both fine, and it's not really, at the end of the day, it's not like really about the action of the day, but I mean, it's not awful. It's not like shaky cam, which a lot of films have done previously, but it doesn't mean you go, oh well, you don't really sort of remember, you're not really memorable sort of action moments. You go, oh yeah, that was really good, that bit.
Well, there is one sequence in Atomic Blonde, which is anyone who's seen it will immediately know what sequence I'm talking about, because it's the only standout sequence in the film, if we're honest. But there's a fight. I can't remember where it starts, but it certainly goes down a stairwell and sort of out into the street and into a car, and then in the car with them. And it is that sort of faux one-take approach that we've seen most recently in that Chris Hemsworth film Extraction on Netflix. It's become a bit of a thing. How much can we achieve in a how did they do this kind of way? And that was a standout sequence, but the biggest problem for me with Atomic Blonde is you only really found out who she was at the end of that film. And once she could be herself, it was suddenly a much more animated performance. For the vast majority of the film, she's not that, and she's playing very coy in a sort of interview room because it's got this cross-cutting structure between the events of the film and her being interviewed about them. As I recall, bear in mind, I've not seen the film for 3 years either. And she was really flat, and it was just smoke, 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 monotone talk, monotone talk, monotone talk. It just should have been better than it was. I thought it was going to be a great action film. What it had that John Wick doesn't have, and John Wick shouldn't have, by the way, it's just as a point of distinction. It was set in something like 1981. So you put it in a different era in terms of look, not a wonderfully overmined era either, because it's neither the coolest bit of the 60s and 70s, nor is it the sort of parody parts of the 80s. We haven't got to sort of big hair and loads of hairspray yet. So it's a sort of distinct micro era within the 80s, and there's something to mine there, and we're in kind of the last vestiges of the really cold bit of the Cold War. And so it just should have been a really interesting film, and I couldn't wait for it to end. It was quite long. I was quite bored. And if you'd listened to me over the last 2 weeks, you'd get the impression I don't rate Charlize Theron, and that's not true. I rate her really, really highly. It's just the fact that two of the weaker performances I've ever seen her in were the two films we've most recently talked about her in, largely because she massively underplayed both roles, both with a rationale that I'm sure she could explain. It's not so much that she's bad, it's more that for an attractive screen commanding presence, they're very small performances. They're not that engaging, and I was just really bored. Actually, I'm just looking at it. It says 1981. I've misremembered that. I'm looking at Wikipedia now, and it's saying 1989. Oh. I'd misremembered that. I thought it was much more. Maybe it's because it's called Atomic Blonde, and Blondie had a song called Atomic. I'm putting it back in the early.
Conflating the two.
I could be.
I think that there's a bit of crossover there, wasn't there? I think Atomic Blonde is probably quite fitting, even though it is kind of 81 or 89. It's the 80s. It's still an iconic song, So I think there is a little bit of crossover there.
It does feel more, or my memories of it are more early 80s in its look than late 80s, but clearly I'm wrong. I could have left that and probably no one would have corrected me, but the fact is I'm wrong. It was like a few years afterwards. But yeah, it just wasn't a very engaging film. But like a lot of these things, you get to the last few minutes. We've had this with a few films we've discussed. Certainly me and Chris on Cinematronics with certain summer films and winter films, actually, that you get to you go through a film that ain't that good, and then the plot sort of starts to tie itself together at the end, and you get some reveal or something, or some setup for something else, and you think, well, that was crap, but the sequel's going to be better. That looks like it could be quite good. I most recently said that about Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, which I thought was terrible, but just the last couple of minutes I started thinking, next one might be quite interesting. You know what I mean? And there's been a few like that in recent years, and that was true of Atomic Blonde. So I think we're going a long way round to say the jury's out on David Leitch, because his best film doesn't even have him named as the director on it. And by and large, since he's departed that series has by and large kept its standard up, and he's gone on to make a range of things that aren't as good.
Yeah, it really does vary, doesn't it? Definitely.
So they were talking about spin-offs for this series back in about 2015. The only two we've had so far are the TV series of the cartoon. I forget what it's called now. I think it's got racers in the title somewhere. So it's Fast and Furious.
Yeah.
Something racers. It's on Netflix.
Yeah, yeah.
Not seen it. I mean, if anyone listening to this, go straight to Netflix, type it in, it will be there. At the moment, anyway. If it was made for Netflix...
I've not actually seen it just yet, sadly.
Well, if it was made for Netflix, it'll always be there. If it's like Netflix's third-party slate, it'll come and go.
Oddly enough, it kind of, like, looking at it reminds me of that James Bond Jr. cartoon.
Let me have a look.
Oh, okay.
I'll
just quickly have a look at it.
Anyone ever watched that James Bond Jr.?
Yeah, because I'm just the right age. It was.
Fast and Furious Spy Racers. I literally just googled it. Sorry.
No, I'm on Netflix looking for it. Spy Racers.
Oh, really good cast. Ooh.
It looks sort of CG. It's CG animation.
I see what you mean about the James Bond Jr. vibe. Yeah, I would agree with you there, Chris.
That's more tone than look, I think.
But it looks cool though. It's got a really diverse cast, really bright popping colours.
Yeah, it's playing a clip now.
Lots of neon.
Yeah, that. I might have a look at it at some point, just for curiosity factor. 24 minute episode.
Just to be a completist.
One series that is currently at 8 episodes. Whether that's the whole series or they're being released.
Yeah, it might be sort of 8 or 10 episodes, might be 12.
I think that could be it, to be honest.
Really good.
So yeah, they've been trying to expand this brand, and I was looking earlier, and I need to find something. Hang on.
Instead of Mr. Nobody, you got Ms. Nowhere.
I haven't got my phone in front of me because the phone app for Wikipedia has like a little description at the top that isn't on the website. This is for the first film. It said 2001 American-German street racing action film or something like that. And then you went and looked at Hobbs and Shaw. If anyone's got the app in front of them, look it up and read it up now. Because it says it names about 8 genres. Do you know what I mean? It says 2019 sci-fi buddy
action comedy,
action superhero spy thriller or something like that. And you can just tell this is going to be a garbled mess. Can you see it? Have you got it?
Oh yeah, I've got it in front of me. It's one of those things, isn't it? I mean, it's sometimes you might get a great film or a series that really does defy genre classification and just covers all the genres or tries to pack as much in as you can. Like there are some like classic like Hitchcock Psycho, for example, that you can't pigeonhole that into any, it is a thriller, it is a slasher, it is a melodrama, for example.
I watched Old Boy today, and that's genre.
Yeah, that covers all the genres.
Because that's got that is an action film, it's a thriller, it's a psychological thriller, it's got
horror, it's an animal
body horror in it.
It's body horror, exactly.
It's got elements of humour.
Tentacle porn.
It's got the funniest suicide I've ever seen.
It's really rich and diverse. But like sometimes with this kind of film, because it's got all the genres, it can be quite messy. It doesn't quite know what it wants to be.
Think that's my point. If you were writing a Wikipedia page for Old Boy, you wouldn't write everything we've just named.
Old Boy is like a stone cold classic. Definitely, I'm saying that. Yeah, that's not messy and confused. But
if you were going to say Psycho and someone said one liner, you put the year, what type of film it is, right? You would just say 1960s, and you would choose.
Slasher,
you would say slasher, or you would say psychological horror.
Yeah.
or you would say, emotional drama. You would pick one.
Could be a melodrama. You don't know.
If you're naming 8 genres, it just
That's a bit
tells me
much.
you don't really know what the fucking film is, do you?
That's a bit much, isn't it?
Yeah.
It just tried to be all of these things and more, but yeah, it gets lost along the way.
Yeah. I don't know when we talk. Did we talk about this, Chris? Because it came out in the autumn. No, it came out. When did it come out? When did we get it? When did we get Hobbs and Shaw?
It was summer. It was like just as August hit. It was one of those.
Yeah,
So
it's one of the big summer movies, wasn't it?
We talked about it on the summer review.
Yeah.
Right. Our summer review this year is going to be a 4-minute show. Sitting on my arse.
Cover what you've seen on VOD, if anything.
Not a lot.
Not a lot, no.
Extraction. It's not that good. The end.
That was quick.
We did talk about it. I don't remember us being wildly enthusiastic.
No. I think I certainly enjoyed it, though there was always a level of disappointment in it. It's like, it wasn't as good as I hoped it would be. So I think you were a lot more down on it, so I kind of kind of a little bit, even though I didn't hate it, I just kind of wished it was better. Because the idea, think like, well, The Rock and Stave together, like that's that's gold there, and I think, how did you fuck it up?
Yeah, we got Idris Elba and Vanessa Kirby. You start looking at the constituent parts, you think this will be all right. Chris Morgan has been serviceable in most of the films, and Drew Pearce is a pretty decent writer.
Yeah.
I don't love everything he's done, but when I look through, every Iron Man 3 is not a film I'm in love with, but it's at least interesting. And when I do meet people who rank Iron Man 3 really high, I understand that completely, because it's trying to do something different, and if it jibes with you, then great. Rogue Nation is a very well written Mission Impossible film, so I was a bit surprised on the basis of I thought it would be decent, and I think for my opening thoughts, it felt like a 4-act film. I mean, they get to the end of that action sequence in Russia or wherever the fuck it was, and I thought, right, well, we'll just wind the film up with a couple of cheesy scenes with Helen Mirren and we're done. and then it's like, we've got to go to like Samoa. I think I called him a Maori last week. I meant Samoan. It's they're all
Polynesian, yeah.
But yeah, so hence they do the Haka soda Maoris and stuff. But yeah,
I think it's kind of Maori, and then there's they have different versions of it, don't they?
Yeah,
depending on where
So
depending on the islands.
I didn't mean to insensitively conflate two different cultures, but I did confuse them. And I knew he was Samoan via Hawaii sort of thing, but there you go. But it does what Rise of Skywalker does. It puts a ticking clock on it, and then immediately shits over the whole concept of a ticking clock.
What, by sort of jumping across, different countries? Think, how have you got the time for this?
You haven't got the time for, massive worldwide flights. Now, I'm aware if you're in the United States, you might be able to get to, parts of Asia and stuff like that quicker, or Russia's not that far and stuff like that, but it's just ludicrous. It was worse in The Rise of Skywalker because they gave them something like 16 hours, immediately shat away about 8 of those, and in the final 8 hours went across the galaxy assembling the largest fleet in history. It just didn't work. And I just think, you got to quit doing that, or if you do it, I can't remember what the time frame was. The one point it was dropped in dialogue, I missed it, and I couldn't be bothered to go back because what's he called says it. Guy Ritchie's bitch. What's he called?
Guy Ritchie's bitch.
Eddie Marsan. I associate him with I associate him with thankless roles in Guy Ritchie films. Eddie Marsan.
He's brilliant in whatever he does. He's fantastic.
He's brilliant. He was great in The World's End and stuff like that.
Yeah, even if he has just tiny little cameo roles, or
I
even
couldn't think of his name, but unfortunately, I could think of an insult before
I was going to say, who do you want? Madonna?
I even mentally filtered it because I've got no disrespect for any Marsan at all. But at one point he said you got 46 hours or something like that. I can't remember what he said now, and I can't remember.
You got X amount of time.
But they did sort of transoceanic flights twice after that. So it didn't make any sense, and I just think, like, I know the essential ludicrousness of the series is part of it in some ways, but there has to be limits. There has to be, for any sense of danger, there has to be limits. So, you know, this film, again, they're falling outrageous distances, hitting the top of a car and just rolling off and having a wander, you know? It's just like, if there's no peril to anything, then it doesn't matter what you do to them. So the time frames are all nuts. You've got flashbacks to the two of them as kids when they're 23 years apart in age, or 22 years apart in age. 21 years, something like that.
I mean, to yes. Those are the actors, though, not the characters.
Well, Jason Statham was born in 1967 and Vanessa Shaw was born in 1988. So it's 21 years. But they look that far apart. I mean, Jason Statham looks pretty good for 52, as he was when he shot this.
Yeah, he looks pretty good.
Well, partly because he's been bald since he was young. It's like Patrick Stewart. People go, he's not aging. I'm thinking, you're fucking mental. He's aging loads. It's only the fact that his hairline hasn't changed, so you kind of, and he hasn't changed weight, so you kind of think he looks more or less the same. And I think that's sort of true with Statham, but she does look like she's kind of late 20s-ish. She's early 30s-ish, but same difference. And he looks like he's probably late 40s-ish. And then it cuts to them as kids, and they're about 18 months apart in age. So things like that are just like, well, just cast your film fucking different. It's not that difficult. And then the biggest two problems I had with the film, probably three, thinking about it.
Oh, gosh.
But the one that stuck out when I walked out of the film was how lazy it was. And I think it was because we had them last week shit-talking each other, and then they reached, like, you know, a nice family barbecue at the end, and now we're back to square one. And it's because this film has one central idea, which is these two don't like each other. But under it all, they're quite similar, really. And they've got to learn about family, because that's the fetish of the fucking series. And it's lazy. I mean, the first time they meet, they're literally stuck facing each other in a room, and it's one shot, reverse of them shit-talking each other with the laziest one-liners and all the sort of cliches of strong men. Don't mention my mother and things like that. It's like, if you made some insult about my mother and you don't even really fucking know her, it would just be water off a duck's back. Don't be such a twat. So the humour was weak. They pushed the Idris Elba skill set way too far, and it is like we're in a superhero film now. And I think that'll do for now, because there'll be other. Oh, the final point is I don't think the action's very good. All those series we talked about, where every week I felt like I was saying third act shit. And it was because I thought I didn't really like action. And that's not true, because we've done action films and action series since. And we've not heard me say that until last week, because Fast 8 is shit and it lost me by the end. Most of the action in this film I was tuning out really, really badly. And we'll go to it as we go through the film. That's where I am with this. It's really weak and really lazy. There have been worse Fast and Furious films, but this is the one that, like, it hasn't got an excuse to be this bad. Not with the people involved in making it. And I just think, like, fucking up your game or fuck off.
Yeah, I didn't see this film at cinema last year. I just thought, oh god, more of the same. So yeah, my kind of takeaway was like, yeah, I didn't miss much. I think my sort of immediate reaction was, that's a crazy film.
You actually posted that, and I didn't. You posted that to just the two of us.
Yeah, I obviously didn't mean anything insensitive by it. I just thought, that's a bit.
I didn't respond to it because I just thought I'll wait and see what she meant by that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, just what it is. Funny how we were talking about, like, it's the different genres. Like it is all of those things. It's an action film. It's comedy. It's a buddy movie. It's supernatural. It's superhero, anti-hero almost ish. it's a techno thriller, it's a spy movie, it's a heist movie, it's a gangster film, it's all of these things.
And it's a comedy.
And it's a comedy, and it's a buddy comedy. And it's a Ryan. I'm trying to get over my dislike of Ryan Reynolds. But he's alright, really.
He's fucking irritating in this film, though. I think me and Chris said to each other, what fucking reverse world have we gone into where, like, Ryan Reynolds has annoyed the shit out of us and Kevin Hart was alright?
Yeah, I was going to say some kind of bizarre mirror world.
Yeah.
Nothing is now.
Leonard Nimoy's
actually
going
like
to turn
see
up with a
that.
goatee in a minute.
It was even odder for me because my partner like has like just this unrational like hatred of Ryan Reynolds. So when we were first dating, she was like I absolutely despise him, and I was like, oh, and I always thought he was actually he's quite entertaining, he's quite light-hearted, he's quite funny, he's a good-looking guy, he's got charisma,
Yeah.
All this stuff. I mean, fine, not everyone, everyone likes Ryan Reynolds, great,
Yeah, if you walk around.
But it's like, okay, fine, it's just one of those things. And then, and I remember like sort of testing her with Deadpool, seeing if she can see if she liked it, and when you're sort of like watching something and the other person's hating it, you're just like, yeah, I can't. let's just switch it off. It's
Ruins it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when this came up, and like I thought, it was all of a sudden it's like I saw what she saw. So I just thought, oh my god, he's so great. and I think this film might have ruined Ryan Reynolds for me. I'm not sure at this moment, but
we'll talk about his scenes because I think they're an afterthought, and we'll go into why in a bit.
Yeah.
But it's crap. It's awful.
I think there's Ryan Reynolds was meant to be done the voice for the bad guy.
He was meant to be like the director, wasn't he?
The Dr. Claw voice.
Eteon. Yeah, he's a bit Dr. Claw, isn't he?
Which I've got tentative theories about, but of course the film does fuck all with the main plot anyway, so that doesn't get revealed. So we're used to franchises now where one film hints at the next, but this film flat out doesn't even finish itself in order to get ready for the next. So yeah, Ryan Reynolds. I think we were supposed to enjoy Dwayne Johnson's discomfort or his character's discomfort at this guy. But actually, I was just completely sympathetic of, yeah, he's fucking irritating, isn't he?
Yeah, it's a bit, I mean, as an actor, I would agree, yeah, he's got talent, he's got charisma, definitely, but he can be a bit annoying. But it's just remember he was making a film that was shot in Winchester randomly. I think it was one of the like Van Wilder sort of films. I think it was one of the sequels. And, had lots of fans go down to see him, and he was like, no, I'm too busy, rah, rah. And I kind of thought, right, that's it, you're a knob.
What, he couldn't be fucked to give anyone.
No, but I think since then, he since apologised. Oh, sorry, I got a hectic schedule. It wasn't being horrible. He was very busy. Rah rah. But I just think, no, you're an ass. But obviously that was hundreds of years ago, and so I'm kind of warming to him for sure. But I actually kind of want to see that film between him, and Dwayne Johnson about them being kind of bestest buds and how they get their tattoos and everything. I kind of feel like there's another film there waiting to be made, a whole another chapter of
I'm quite happy for it to sort of keep waiting.
Yeah, that'll be way off yet, but I kind of feel like those seeds are being sown. But yeah, getting back to this film, definitely. My one takeaway was that it tries to cover all the genres, and at once it doesn't know what it wants to be. For me, I'd probably say Idris Elba is a standout. Excuse me, sorry, getting a bit. Eddie Marsan is fantastic. Whatever he's in, even if he has the tiniest of roles, even if he has one line, it just hugely improves things. He's probably him, and Idris Elba are probably like the shining stars, definitely the kind of redeeming features. Amazing cameo from Rob Delaney, hilarious. A lot of the other like Simone supporting cast. I mean, Cliff Curtis and Roman Reigns as well, legendary superstar. But a lot of his other Simone family is kind of left on the wayside, which is a bit of a shame, seeing as they make so much effort to go there and present a lot of that culture. So I feel we're kind of really missing out there, unfortunately. I kind of got the impression that a lot of it was left on the cutting room floor. I'm sure it wasn't, but that's just the impression that I was left with at the end. It was just too much, too crazy, and I just kind of felt a bit deflated at the end, a bit disappointed, unfortunately. But
yeah,
hey-ho.
I think that's kind of the problem, really. I think they kind of like have ideas because you got Rock was one of the producers. Or I say Rock because I always know.
Yes, anyway.
We're going to use Dwayne the Rock and Hobbs
sorry.
interchangeably.
Yeah.
Just get used to it, folks. This
Sorry
is about his 5th fucking film. You should all be used to it by now.
Yeah, definitely. I think he produced it, and also Stath produced it as well, didn't they? I think they both had producer credits.
Yeah, I mean, what struck me is that obviously he would have had a say in like doing the what's the stuff the Samoan sort of like chant they do.
Oh, the Haka.
Haka. They did that last week with the soccer.
Yeah, it's got a different name. I
And-
need to look at the name
now,
of it. But...
And now he does it again. It's like, okay, that's 2 films right now, which you had to put in the Waka chanting. I'm like, do we really?
I don't know. So, just to interrupt to say, I don't know because we got a lot of North American listeners, and I don't know how well it's known there. But
I'll look it up. 'Cause I think it's known as something else, isn't it?
They do vary in the different cultures, but we came across it most often in rugby union in this country when the New Zealand All Blacks do their version of it. They always do it before a game. So it's easy to YouTube and read up about Haka, H-A-K-A.
Yeah.
But again, the
Samoan
Samoan equivalent, I'm not saying...
formed by the sports clubs.
I thought it was already self-indulgent, and given the film was supposed to be fucking finished by this point, I just thought, oh, God.
It was quite long as well. I mean, two and a bit hours, and I kind of felt like it did. I mean, there was a lot... I think probably, for me anyway, felt like up until like the hour bit mark, I kind of thought, oh, this is roaring along, rattling on at quite a pace. It just seems to grind to a halt, and it's like, oh, okay. And it's one of those films for me that kind of has many endings, like ends 2 or 3 times, and there could have been points where they could chop it off, and roll credits. But for me, it kind of ended like a couple of times. It's like, oh, okay. But yeah, I mean, definitely action packed. In terms of this film being under the umbrella of Fast and the Furious, it's probably as far away as we can get from the origins of the series now. But yeah, if it's like cars, vehicles, action, balls to the wall, then this is for you totally.
Yeah, I think it's just like too many ideas, too many cooks. I think that's why it's too long. That's why you got lots of like too many wacky ideas that end up doesn't gelling. I think that's the problem here with the film.
It's quite busy, isn't it?
Yeah, I think as Dave was saying, it's like by the time like they're coming out the big complex in Moscow and everything's blowing up, mentally in your head, when watching a film, any film, you have this kind of like sense of where you are, and you think, right, well, this is the bit where we're wrapping up now. And it just felt like that initially. Then I remember watching, oh no, there's another 40 minutes yet. So yeah, I think this is like, we have to have this scene, we have to have this bit. Too many establishing, don't just go straight into it. And yeah, the comedy's not particularly great. The action's not particularly great. I wish it was better for the cast that we have. Vesta Kirby's probably the standout, I think.
Oh yeah, of course, I forgot about her. Sadly, she was.
I mean,
as well.
she was great in the Mission Impossible film.
Yes, fabulous. Yeah, I think the 3 of them. So like her, Idris Elba.
It was the year before that, wasn't it? She was
Eddie
in Mission Impossible.
Fantastic.
Yes, yeah.
But she came off as really well. I'm not sure about having Hobbs as a love interest though. That just did not seem to work for me.
It was a bit out of the blue, wasn't it? It was like, oh.
Well, it just was like, no, I don't know whether, it's not like I think you should never have love interests or whatever. There's something about how it was played. Just when you got him like sort of trying to get a Statham sort of to say, oh, you want to get on this big mountain of a man, then I'm gonna let it. Just felt kind of childish, and I think that's another thing. It just didn't feel like Hobbs a lot of the time, because it didn't make sense for someone like Hobbs to have that history, that the fact, oh, I'll never go back home. Why? Well, I put my corrupt dad away. he was a criminal, and that meant I can never go home again, which did not seem to make sense to me, given the fact that, well, his mother clearly didn't think so, But the excuse for it just didn't seem to sort of.
They've just got to learn. Somebody, if not all of them, need to learn about family in every fucking film. That's all that is. He's got to reconnect to his heritage, which is a way for Dwayne to sort of share with us his pride in his own heritage, which is not in itself a bad thing. It just doesn't serve the film, and that's the problem with having actors as fucking producers if they're not Tom Cruise. Because they just have a tendency to just... It's the too many cooks thing. It happens with, in my opinion, because lots of people like the series, but I thought it was the same with Patrick Stewart and the Picard series. They had Patrick Stewart in the writer's room, and he's not a fucking writer, and it shows. It's just really bad ideas happen, and I just think it was part of their shit talking, wasn't it? That like you have to have The Rock interested in her to piss off Jason Statham. That's all it is, and I think that's a gross misuse of her character. They don't have anything other. Dwayne Johnson seems to have chemistry with everybody, but it's kind of a friendly, amiable chemistry, not necessarily a romantic one.
Yeah.
You can imagine him sitting and giving, like, in character, giving anyone a pep talk, a cheer up, a laugh, making them feel better, just shooting the breeze with them. You can imagine any of that.
Instantly.
Couldn't imagine those two going at it. Not for any other reason than that the chemistry just didn't radiate that way.
Yeah.
Mm.
I don't know. It just seems odd, doesn't it? And it just seems like an odd choice because I say well, yes, okay, family is still the theme of this. You're taking two other characters. Well, why do you have to do both? Why can't you just focus on Shaw and get the relationship, the scene that the sister's introduced in this film, and then for your sequel, do the Samoa thing. Do you know what I mean? It's like you don't have to go all in on both.
And some of the jokes aren't serving the film when you're on a ticking clock, and I'll come to them when we get to them. But there's one in particular where, thinking about it today as a second viewing, I'm thinking what he's just done there is really dangerous for their mission, and we'll get to it. But it's just, I just think it's trying to do everything, and I'm thinking, right, what are the base attributes of the Fast and Furious franchise? So even if you're going to do spin-offs, what's in the DNA that you want from the parent series? That you go, this is a Fast and Furious presents, it's in the title.
Yeah.
So what do you keep? Is it about having cars as an underlying theme? Well, I don't think they really serve that, to be honest.
This is kind of my point. It's kind of like this is but as far as we've come, or if you go back to the original series, and obviously how it started off as kind of like, I was going to say backstreet racing, but street racing, sort of illegal street races and stealing DVD players. But yeah, I think obviously, as we know, the series has evolved as time's gone on. But it's like, if you've got things like action, cars, that sort of thing, it doesn't tick very many of those boxes, really.
Or is it just the people? And if that's the case, fuck all the rest of it, and let's just have a buddy fucking comedy between the two.
Yeah, exactly. It could just be the cast, and
so I just think
we got one of them.
They love the idea of having a spin-off with two popular guys who are both reasonably decent at pulling their weight at the box office. The end result doesn't reflect any kind of vision, and I'm not talking about authorship particularly, but if you're going to pitch, let's spin them off into their own show, what's it going to be?
See, the problem is I thought there was just too many things they wanted it to be, and that's the problem with it. With it, I think it just comes as weird mishmash. They want to up the stakes. They kind of introduce this big sort of cyber advanced group, should we say? Which basically could you could think. I mean, I was thinking, well, this could be a great Tony Stark villain, but we're not in a Tony Stark film, are we? So
no, we're not. I mean, I think if I look at Idris as a villain in films, my mind goes to Star Trek Beyond, which is a better film than this. With the benefit of time, I don't really love any of the Kelvin. I don't really love any of the Kelvin Universe films, but the weakest bit of Star Trek Beyond, which was like a big budget original series TV episode, not Star Trek the TV show as people would know from its most popular period, which was probably the 90s. But if you think what the original series was and the attributes of the average episode, Star Trek Beyond is like a big budget version of that. So when people say the Kelvin universe isn't Star Trek, I get why they say it, but Star Trek Beyond is, if you're going to make a big budget version. But the most undercooked part of that film, because they were rushing to hit the 50th anniversary, was Idris Elba's character. It was a bit confused and all over the place and a bit underwhelming. At least here, however ill thought through, I think they know what they want the character to be. And he does stand out here a bit more. I quite like him as an antagonist. Whether I like the idea behind what he is a different matter.
Mm. I mean, he does seem to be enjoying himself as well. So he does seem to be like, enjoying the spotlight as a baddie. It's always nice to see that, because usually when you see actors who typically portray, you think if they get hero roles, that you think, oh, good to gets a villain role, and it makes a nice change.
Yes, it's nice to see him kind of on the other side, isn't it? I think like over here he's kind of known for hero roles, and especially Lita on the BBC as well, sort of grizzled detective. So it's nice to kind of see him on the other side. I mean, he's definitely, as an antagonist, he's definitely menacing, and you kind of get the impression that he is a bit, like during one of the chase scenes, I think he gets dubbed like the Terminator, for example, and he is very much kind of that ilk, sort of very like superhuman.
He'll always be Stringer Bell to me.
Well, that's it. Well, exactly.
Senior in a drug gang, so I mean, I don't necessarily think of him playing against type.
No.
I've seen
he's comfortable on both in front of and behind the camera, and on either side, playing big bad or hero. Definitely, you know that he's going to sort of bring.
I just wish 100%. I wish if they'd brought him into the series, they'd brought him into a better film than this. That's all.
Yeah, I did kind of feel a little bit like, but he's one of the best things in it for sure. And if they're going to explore a little bit about Eteon, I can never pronounce the name. Eteon.
Sounds like an energy company.
It does a little bit, doesn't it? Oh dear. What does it stand for? What does it stand for? What does it mean?
Learn fuck all about this plot.
Yeah, exactly. It's setting the series up. It's sowing those seeds for like future spin-offs, future sequels. A whole new kind of spin-off series from this. So, which is quite good.
You got to give us a reason to care.
Well, exactly. So.
Beyond. Wonder if that's Han. I mean, that's not. That'll be answered next year. Is it Dark Han? Maybe from Beyond the grave. Is he dead? Does he come back again the third time? We don't know. But no, yeah, I would agree. I think Idris Elba was really effective here for sure. And I kind of felt like just hurtling towards the end there. The scene where he kind of dies off the cliff, I kind of felt a bit like, his death was quite flat, shall I say? I kind of felt that it was a bit. He just gets shut down by an external force, and I was like, oh, is that it?
Which doesn't sound like a really sort of good thing and a good deal, does it? Really think like,
no,
great,
really.
you can upgrade your this, you can
just gets decommissioned. Oh,
and then what's the catch? Well, I can just like sort of turn the off button and you die anytime I want.
Yeah, considering I was meant to be like unstoppable, it's like, oh, okay, dick. But he's quite menacing while he's on screen, and gave a good performance. So. Probably one of the more memorable aspects of the film for me.
Yeah, I think it's something about like using the styles and sensibilities of having both Rock and Jason Statham in a movie. It is kind of a bit too dumbed down, a bit too cartoony. Yes, Jason Statham works better when he's not taking himself too seriously, and there's always going to be an element of humour in there, but I think it just goes a bit too. I think the Eteon aspect of it is just a bit too much. I think it probably could do being grounded to a degree and make it all about like the action, the fist fights, because you look at them too, and they kind of like, well, they're both yin and yang, and they both in their own ways, Hobbs is, very sort of formal, tactile, but also just brute strength, whereas Hobbs is more roguish, but yet he's more, accurate and elegant in terms of like how they fight. So
he lives a more refined life from what we see early in the film as
Yeah.
well. But again, these spin-offs are always dodgy. It's a bit like the Marvel universe in that there's one bit where they're trying to like hack into the virus, if you like, and that your first thought is you've come to Samoa to get expert help from your family on this, but you were last here in the early 90s. Computers weren't as big a thing then. So how do you know they had any fucking programming skills whatsoever? Call Tej.
he's an engineer.
Call Tej.
Yeah,
But
exactly. I'm sure you got him on speed dial.
In fact, because those are interchangeable as well. But that's just something you get with sort of multi-part universes, I guess. But so much of this film doesn't make a lot of sense, and they don't use Idris Elba enough. In that, it's going to be man with the golden gun syndrome. In that, in a few years' time, if anyone remembers this film, they go, "Oh, I liked Idris Elba in it," just like we go, "Oh, I like Christopher Lee in it." When you actually go back and look at the screen time, it's just not there, and it's because they're busy pissing around on planes and stuff like that, and like small penis jokes. And I just it just
small.
Yeah, well, I'll make a point about that in a minute because they're on a ticking fucking clock, and what does he do to him? But we'll get to it. Shall we discuss this film sequentially?
If we must.
Oh dear.
I avoided trailers to this film, I think, because someone said to me there was like an enhancement storyline to it. Not unlike what we got with whatever that fucking character was in that Terminator film that I've forgotten 5 months on. An enhanced human with extra skills and all the rest of it. And I don't think I saw a trailer because the first scene of this film took me by surprise. Like what they can do, I just thought this is the same universe they were robbing a bank at fucking 8 years before, and they were like nicking DVD players like 18 years before, and now we've got like enhanced humans with self-riding bikes.
We've gone far removed, haven't we? We've gone far removed towards the other end.
Yeah, and whenever you say to anyone that was ridiculous, they go, "Oh, it's the Fast and Fast franchise. What do you expect?" And it's like, but there's limits to everything, surely.
I wonder if we're going to see sort of like a Die Another Day sort of syndrome where it's going to be like, or the series is going to get so fantastical, so out there, where they're just going to go right, reset, or if there's going to be a reboot in 5,
Bond's a good
6, 7,
example.
9, 10 years.
You can look to eras of Bond, not the current era so much, but you can look at eras of Bond where they were all kind of far-fetched, but there were still limits. There were still films you'd got to where we knew and the filmmakers knew that I think we've gone a step too far now. We need to strip this back a little bit.
Yeah, I need to reset back to Casino Royale.
This series is at that point. It was at this point last week, arguably even the week before, but the last 2 weeks have been films that are fundamentally damaged by the flaws, whereas before that it was like, well, this is ridiculous, but I'm enjoying it. So we open with this sequence where we've got, I think she's MI6, isn't she? They're storming a warehouse to get like a virus back. I don't think we know much about it.
And we get exposition from like the most British like soldier accent ever.
Yeah, he is a bit like that, isn't he?
It's like, all right, you got to go get the. Got to treat.
Oh, governor.
Yeah.
Literally cramming in all the Cockney,
Yeah.
Yes, because everyone in England is either like that or talk like Hugh Grant.
Hello.
Yeah, we're the posh.
There's nothing in between.
No, there's no regional accent. It's like,
occasionally we throw in a Scouser just for variation.
Dear. And they still don't know what he's on about.
Yeah. A generic northern accent.
Yeah, generic northern.
Hey up, Wolf.
Yeah. Your city's only allowed in the music business, Chris. That's the way it works.
Well, yeah, my city's made like the only band ever existed to, according to half the population of Manchester.
Yeah.
Oh, right, really?
Well, yeah, you sort of see some like sort of Stone Roses fans, and you think like they're like the only band that make music. It's just
Didn't
like
existed.
Yeah, it's just like okay,
Oh,
I'm sorry, but they're not that good.
There are other bands.
I'm sorry, they did not make the greatest debut album in the world. I think it's just okay.
Dun, dun, dun. Controversial.
They're in lore a little bit like the TV show Firefly, in that Firefly gets remembered as this amazing lost classic, and actually what it was really promising. It was a first series. It was a first season, and it plays like a first season. It's still establishing who everyone was and stuff like that, but that sci-fi melding with Western was really great. But it was nowhere near its peak as a show. So if you're saying we've lost what we could have had, I get it. But if you look at what we did get and think that's the greatest thing of all time, I think you're fucking deluded.
Yeah, I think it didn't get a chance to fuck up, really, did it?
I liked Firefly, but that's all. I just think, like, had it kept running by season 3 or 4 with everything like holding together, it might have been really good. But you don't know that for certain, because you look at something like the Battlestar Galactica remake, and it fell on its arse after the first couple of series. So you just never know. But yeah. So anyway, Manchester, just music. That's all. No films. That's how it works.
And the thriving cultural scene.
It's great when something's set down in my part of the world because everybody does the same accent who's not from here. Like there's one accent for the whole of the West Country.
That's what made us laugh about. Like, obviously, at the moment there was the other weekend there was a Salisbury poisoning, sort of a dramatical retelling of the Russian spy case that happened in Salisbury a couple of years ago.
The accents up there.
Yeah, we all sound like we're from Bristol apparently, and it's like, no, we don't all sound like that. I mean, I've no offense to anybody who is from that area or does have a West Country accent. It's fine. I don't think I sound like that. Do you think I sound like that?
No.
No, we don't sound like that.
Well, you don't sound like that. Charlie's got kind of a Bristol accent.
Well, yeah, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with it. But we just kind of thought, well, I mean, obviously, like the lady sadly passed away. Her family are sort of from Downton, so they're probably going to have like a little bit more of an accent. But it was just a bit of a broad brushstroke. Like, we're from Wiltshire, so therefore we must all sound like farmers, or we all must have West Country accents. Like, no, it's not how we sound. But that was our biggest takeaway.
I've got to drive for hours to get to fucking Becca. She's miles up from.
Well, likewise, I've got to travel a few hours to get to you, Dave. So, and even more if we ever to make it to Manchester. So.
Yeah, but we wouldn't go up there unless we were making albums, because that's all they do.
That's it. Stone Roses concert, here we come.
Yes.
And call each other Arcade.
Arcade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll all come out with like broad northern accents. Yep, bun.
I just suddenly reminded of that Kevin Ferry sketch where like Perry goes to like Manchester and comes back and he's all like swing.
He is like Oasis.
Yeah. While drinking literally a soft drink called Oasis.
Yeah,
well, that's what you do.
He draws like a little beard on or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, alright, sound, yeah.
That is what he sounds like.
It's funny how you naturally do the accent until you think about it, and then you can't do your own accent.
Is my accent Manchester though? Really? I don't know. I think I'm just
pretty much.
Is it?
But anyway, right. So I think we've examined this scene in quite a lot of depth.
I think we're trying to cover most of the UK.
Yeah.
Right. Anyway, so Idris Elba turns up with his crew.
Well, he just shows up on his own, doesn't he? Sort of, and then.
Oh, he shows up on his own to start with, but yeah, basically he's trying to take.
So I'm not sure why the rest of the crew are even there, because like.
No, they didn't have anything to do.
So he's got someone to look right browned off to afterwards.
He does.
That's what it is. Yeah, this is it's just an action sequence that ends up with her injecting herself with the virus to keep it out of his hands.
Yeah, she managed to
what's
get
going
away.
On at the moment, it's quite prescient, really, isn't it? With a virus threatening the world. So
she gets away, but he sort of kills all her crew and makes it look like she did it.
Yeah,
that's it, really.
Essentially, she's framed.
Yeah, it's going to start a whole film of completely underwhelming action. There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing that right about it either. Hence, we talked about Kevin and Perry for longer than we talked about the fucking action.
It's one of those examples where we were so bored with the film, we can easily rate the super hunks,
Right. I don't want anyone to think I didn't hate it for the virulence of what I said at the start of this. It's just with the talent involved, it just should have been better. That's all. It's not hateful. It's just like, why have you done that?
Of course, yeah.
I mean, I've covered films in the last 6 months on this show I've despised compared to this. So, the waking up and going about their business, they're so different, but they're so the same, Chris.
What? Because they're because they're so aligned, but they're just doing their things differently.
Well, yeah, basically Statham cooks himself some eggs, Dwayne Johnson drinks some eggs. They get in their cars around the same time.
Statham,
Right.
yes, yeah, he has a coffee.
Statham's in bed with a woman who never gets referenced again.
No, yeah, who is she? Mrs. Statham. Mrs. Shaw.
Done Whiteley. Yeah, no, we have no idea because he's getting off with someone later on, and there's no reference to him being attached thereafter. So maybe he's just that
who
good
is she?
with-
Mysterious.
maybe
woman.
he's just that good with the honeys.
Loves the ladies. Oh yeah. Actually, maybe it's James Bond. Don't know. Anyway, moving on. Next, we see him behind the bar.
Yes.
Yeah, Hobbs goes. Hobbs goes and exercises while Shaw goes and pours himself a drink.
Yeah, he goes. That's a beer.
But I don't know
Yeah,
what
he's
he's trying to
drinking.
communicate to us. He's very well dressed. He's got a lovely London apartment that there's no way he'd ever be able to afford, along with a car there's no way he'd ever be able to afford. And
He's drinking
whereas
at 11 in the morning.
whereas Hobbs has a much more sort of rugged lifestyle, but they're doing essentially the same stuff. He's clearly back in the DSS now, having
JCP.
quit at the end of the last film. And eventually they end up going to basically nightclubs, don't they? Separate
Yeah.
ones. And it's all to do with finding out details about this virus.
Yeah, so I think one's about a virus that's that's going around, and Stephen's particularly looking for this new high tech group.
Right.
So because obviously Statham has history with that previously with Elba,
Right.
so he's more aware about the electronic company, which it sounds like Eteon. That's where he's going in, and Rock's just trying to find out about this virus that he hears that's going around or in development.
Yeah. So he ends up dangling a guy out the window
Yeah.
in sort of a very sort of posh nightclub, and sort of demanding information from him and not getting it, and hitting people with bottles and shit like that. And Hobbs tattoos "I love cops" on the forehead of a tattoo artist.
Yeah.
Because you can do whatever you want when you're in law enforcement in these films. I mean, talk about you can't really hide that as evidence, can you? I've been abused by one of your officers. Really? Do you have any proof?
It's
got my new tattoo.
it's written all over my face.
Yeah, it's actually written on
Yeah.
your face.
In his handwriting. Yes.
I
Okay.
didn't do it myself.
So, yeah, they're just so similar. So, Hobbs now goes to breakfast with his younger, slimmer daughter. They've basically cast someone a little younger and, yeah, a little less tomboyish than last week. And I mean, no
the
offense
time
when I
frame
say
of these films is all over the place, really, isn't it? The kind of the timeline, even.
she'll be a
Just hop
baby.
around a
She'll
little
be a
bit,
fucking 2-year-old in Fast 9, won't she?
Probably, yeah, she'll be 5 or something. But yeah, I think she's a good actress. Does quite well in the scenes. But yeah, I think that the timelines of these films just kind of all a bit wibbly wobbly, timey wimey.
And I'll just remind that this is why you don't give Bond a kid.
I'm not sure, but I'll hold out on that theory.
No, finish your point, Chris.
Well,
Why don't you give Bond a kid? I completely agree, by the way. But
Because-
what about
Yes,
this film
agree.
is telling you?
Because the kid's going to have to be forever be at whatever age, or
So
you
you
know,
constantly
so you can't have
transfer.
Bond the series continue and then 10 years he's got a teenager. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just it sends
You've
too
either
many
got
questions.
to have him never see the kid, which is a problem,
Yeah.
or the kid die, which is just unnecessary, or yeah, exactly. You got to freeze the kid's age. James Bond forever has a kid who's between 5 and 9 years old.
And it just doesn't work for the character at all. Anyway.
Doesn't work for the character at all. Because there's just something tasteless about him out shagging and he's got a kid
Yeah.
at home, you know what I mean? But
Yeah,
there
this
you
is
go.
why I'm not a fan of the it's his daughter theory, but it might be. I might be surprised by the time the film comes out. I don't know.
It's all in the execution, but it really does then suggest that the whole Craig era has been a one-off experiment,
We shall
as
see.
opposed to anything sort of sustainable. It's been a long one-off era, and I don't mind them trying the personal stuff and doing all that. Don't think it's thoroughly worked, but have a go. You know what I mean? It's fine to try something new, but yeah, I don't like the kid suggestion anyway. It's no more than for anyone listening who's tried to avoid Bond spoilers, that isn't one. It's just A, it's everywhere, and it's B, a rumor based off one one article that was full of supposition anyway.
I would say we'll probably have to add a spoiler warning at the front, even though it kind of technically isn't a spoiler. We'll still have to probably stick a spoiler alert at the top.
I mean, it could be Madeline's kid, not Bond's. Do you know what I mean? It could.
It
yeah.
could.
Yeah.
I think I'm a big fan of the clone theory. It could be a clone, but yeah, who's to say it might be Madeline? You never know.
Great. So they're going to sort of rip off Austin Powers again.
Yeah, I'm kind of wondering, are they going to go down that route and be like, oh,
Well,
no.
it's actually an adult, but it's 1/8 Madeline.
Well, it's your size. It's actually Mini-Me back from the dead. But or it could be a clone of Madeline when she was younger. You know, that's kind of...
Well, he could just have a farm where he grows like his future girlfriends.
Probably.
It's just like that one will be oven ready in about 15 years.
The man from MI6, he say yes.
He doesn't run the farm. He's too busy saving England. He turns up in his man from Del Monte suit, takes a quick look. When he sees one that looks about the right age, he gives her a bit of a snog, stands back, and the farmer waits for his thumbs up or thumbs down. And that's not a euphemism. And he's like, and then he does that sort of chef's kiss thing. And they're like, yay! And then she gets sort of boxed and mailed to London the next day.
Oh,
On ice.
Oh dear. In very small boxes.
Well, that's because no one's used a box yet.
No. Oh dear.
Sorry. Right.
Anyway, moving on. It's going to be that kind of show, folk.
Well, the film's crap. Anyway, right. So, breakfast, and I don't even know what they're talking about, but who cares? And
It's
Ryan
cheat day, so Rock's having the menu.
A massive pile of pancakes. It's like, great.
Yeah, it's a
alright.
big ass pile of pancakes. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, because you've got to stick to like protein. All right. Anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, she gives him family treats.
Having a cheat day.
We have no family, and he's like, okay.
Join a family tree. Oh, that's it. She's been working on a family tree. I was like, yeah, okay. We never find out what happened to her mother or anything, so.
Yeah, which is
Okay, so Ryan Reynolds sidles up to the table to fucking nauseate all of us. Bell end. He's quite close to like rubbing Dwayne Johnson's thigh. Because his whole humour is, maybe I do swing both ways. Maybe I do love you. And it's not fun.
Yeah.
It's just not funny.
Yeah,
The topic's not the problem. It's the execution. It's just not that funny.
it's just a bit too much, Ryan Reynolds. I think that's what.
Well,
It died all the way up to 11.
It's an expository scene, really. If you think about it, he's in script mechanics. He's there to just give us some information and effectively recruit Hobbs. That's all that scene is. But they've whacked themselves silly over the fact they've managed to get like Ryan Reynolds in for a cameo, and he's big mates with the director anyway. Because bear in mind, it was largely from it's rumor, but it's good rumor in that I tend to believe it, that it's Ryan Reynolds' fault that Tim Miller wasn't there for the second one. They didn't really get on, and he chose this guy to replace him. So yeah, they're tight, and they've just got too excited about this scene. Every time you see Ryan Reynolds, bar one, I think he's on the same set. So I think they had him for a day or two, and they've just let him like riff for those 2 days and decided everything he says is gold. It's almost Jim Carrey irritating.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
You know, I mean, even I appreciate Becca likes Jim Carrey, and I wouldn't insult that. But if you take a film like Batman and Robin, there's no clear direction on him. They've just let him riff and gone, "This is all gold," and put it all in. So you know, he reacts to something with about four kiss off lines, and none of them are funny, and it's a bit like that.
Yeah, so he's there like with his match. Also, like sort of thing, giving like talking about Game of Thrones, which just dates it instantly.
What film did they use that in where it worked?
It was
prison scene in a film.
Yes, it was.
Wasn't it Logan Lucky?
That's it. Yeah.
It worked in that film because you didn't need to know. I don't think what they were saying was as important as the context.
Yeah.
So the fact that they're arguing about some contemporary TV show's the point. Whereas here, it's cultural reference, and you're right, it's just going to get lost, isn't it? Particularly as the last season was supposedly so bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it had already happened by the time this film came out, I think. So, yeah, it wasn't great. And then he's showing him his tattoo, and I'm just like, can we get to the point of what this is? And you're being a fucking creep in front of a child.
And also discussing sensitive information in a public area.
Yeah, there's this poison. Can I get some more coffee? Yeah.
But yeah, he's there like showing off like, I've got a tattoo, and you just be like, oh, fuck's sake.
Yeah. That's either an elaborate joke or you genuinely have. So you're either the most elaborate trickster in the world who likes winding Hobbs up, or you have some genuine obsession with him. And at the end of the film, when you have a conversation with each other, you're back to being like work colleagues. What the fuck is this? And I think that's genuinely a bit unsettling. I wouldn't care if there was homoerotic tension between them. That's not the problem. The problem is we don't know what we're watching. And this is an expository scene that's kind of going nowhere, is rather creepy in front of a kid, and because we don't really know what this relationship is, I'm finding this unsettling without really knowing why.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, would it work better had it just Ryan Reynolds just showed up and just not made any gags, just played it straight?
Yes.
Yeah, just literally delivered his line, and that was it.
Yes, he's got enough star power to make a bit of an entrance with that. It's fine. And it's not there's Ryan Reynolds. When you go and read his Twitter feed, it's really funny. He spends most of the time trolling his own fucking wife and kid. It's funny.
He's really quick, isn't he? He's on the ball. He's sharp. He's quick to reply. But very funny.
I just think with any of these guys, Robin Williams, as great as he was, any of them, they need a little bit of editing and a little bit of direction. And if you do just let them riff, you've got to do a bit of work on it in the editing room. You don't just go, well, we've got Ryan Reynolds, this is all brilliant. What are you worried he's going to sack you from Deadpool 3 if you cut anything? So, yeah, anyway, so he's told about the snowflake, isn't it?
Yeah.
And he's reluctant to help, and you think you were investigating this in the last fucking scene. Don't tell us you're not interested now.
Yeah, hold on a minute.
So this is all over the place. It's like, is he in or is he out? And I don't mean that in the, what's going on there?
Is he in the mission or is he out of the mission making wind up?
Yeah. At the same time,
Shaw sees his mum in prison.
His mum, who seems to be wearing she's wearing quite a designer prison uniform.
Mm. She's still very much got a like Babs Windsor or, sort of, as we said last time.
It's always modelled on like the mother of the Krays and things like that.
Yeah, it's very much that kind of gangster stereotype.
I like Helen Mirren. I've always liked Helen Mirren.
Yeah, she's really good. Has a cameo role here, definitely. And she gives it everything.
As great as Judi Dench was, if you'd said to me in the mid-90s, cast a female in, I'd have picked Helen Mirren. I'm not saying she would have been better than Judi Dench. I'm just saying that would have been the first name to mind. I like her, and I like her in most things, but I'm not sure about this character. Are you?
It's fine for what it is.
it's okay.
I mean, it's funnier and more charming than Ryan Reynolds.
Well, there's a bit of charm to this because she's a little bit of a troublemaker in prison, and it's almost like the parent as the child. You know, the children have to come in and like control her. It's better in It is much better in execution. But
places like I'm just here for a bit of relax really.
The one good line is how long are you in here? 2 years with good behaviour. So how long's that then? 4 years. So that is a pretty decent line. And this film doesn't have many good lines in it. It has a lot of lines, but it's like a Roger Moore Bond film. None of them are any good. After this visit is all about breaking her out and all that kind of shit, and it's just
when are you going to see your sister? That kind of thing.
Sister, eh? He's got a sister, has he? Ooh. And also he loves his mum, and these films are, he's a really nice bloke. He walks out the prison and immediately meets Rob Delaney, who, to Becca's obvious joy.
Oh, from Catastrophe.
I don't really know Rob Delaney from very much. I know the name.
He's a writer, comedian. Go and check him out. Seriously, you won't be disappointed.
Never saw Catastrophe.
For me, he was a delight.
And he's been on British panel shows. I must know him, and I do recognise him. So I'm looking to see what I know him from best. I mean, I would know him from a few things, but oh God, his son died of a brain tumour at 2.5.
Yes, it's very sad.
I did not know that, and he suffered with depression and alcoholism. I'm not fucking surprised. Okay, his
sad loss.
Filmography. He had a deleted scene in Rocket Man as Elvis Presley. I would have liked to have seen that.
Yeah, I was going to say, fun fact.
No, I've not. I have genuinely seen nothing he's been in, with the exception of Deadpool 2. He was that Peter character. I remember that.
Yeah, also Deadpool 2, obviously. I sort of mainly know him from Catastrophe, but he's pops up in lots of different things. And very often hilarious.
He's in the forthcoming Tom and Jerry film.
Oh God.
Didn't know there was going to be one. Yeah, well, that's kind of. It's got me interested.
There was a Tom and Jerry film where they all talked.
There was a Tom and Jerry. Yeah, but this is a live action and animated sort of together.
I suppose we've had Chipmunks, really? We've had Garfield, we've had Yogi Bear. What else? Top Cat. Well, not live action, but 3D CG animation.
Right, I'll tell you the bits that don't worry me, then I'll tell you the bit that does.
Anyway,
because it's starring Chloe Grace Moretz. That's fine. It is starring Michael Pena. That's absolutely fine. Ken Jeong. Well, he's a bit broad, but okay.
That's a given.
And then I look at the writers, and the writers have written stuff like episodes for 6 Feet Under and Lost, so I think that's okay. And the other person's written Booksmart, which was a well thought of film. And then you go, directed by Tim Story.
Oh. That tells you everything you need to know.
Bollocks, that was going quite well for a minute.
Up until that point. The studio has obviously gone, we'll hire you for this job.
I didn't think his Shaft film was that bad, actually, but again, against what bar?
The Shaft remake was really interesting, actually.
This is the 2019 one, not the 2000 one.
Oh, okay. I've not seen the most recent one.
I like the most recent one more than the 2000 one because I think Shaft is more Shaft in that film. It's much more of a ladies' man and things like that. But
they kind of go back to the
when
original.
you go back and watch the Witcher Round Street film, which I did about 6 months ago, it's not that good. It just isn't. I'm sure it played at the time and it played to a certain audience, but it's not dated that well, and it's not. I honestly don't think it's that good. So against that, you watch a Shaft film this year, and it's quite funny. It was funnier than the first remake, and he didn't do that bad a job on it. But those Fantastic Four films were fucking awful. And Think Like a Man, and we'll see. So yeah, Rob Delaney's not someone I know that well, but he's there to give. He's there to do the Ryan Reynolds bit for sure, really, isn't he? And the two talk to each other later, don't they? Which is just gold.
Yeah, just like how. So yeah, I bet they can't wait to sort of like find out they're working together, eh?
this film. I mean, is that the next? Yeah, it is. It's straight to the next scene where they come together,
Yeah.
and it's no
It's your
fucking way.
favourite bit.
This is just emblematic for me. This is just the laziest shot scene in the entire Fast and Furious franchise. It's the laziest conceived scene in the Fast and Furious franchise. It shits on last week's film, which wasn't that good in itself. The insults are not fucking funny at all, and they take turns to give the insults like it's fucking music hall or something. I don't like this scene. I don't like this. I knew the film had problems as soon as we came to this. The insults are shit. And they go on for ages. And it's just embarrassing. I mean, even if you're going to play up this awkwardness around each other, they've just been put together and they're stood in front of like CIA, MI5, whatever it is, professionals. And you just think, like, if you behaved like that in any job, you'd last 5 fucking minutes. It's pathetic. But worst of all, it's shot with no invention and it's not funny. You just put the two of them in a room and they take turns to give each other insults, which typically involve like fucking each other's mothers or something. It's crap. Thoughts?
Yes.
Yes, it's
saying.
rubbish. The end.
Right.
So basically here that they have a bit of a bicker and Shaw walks off. And Hobbs goes, right, well, fine, well, now we've got rid of that guy, let's do some investigation. So he seems to find out where Hattie is, right, where...
I love the fact that they both find out different things, because that's convenient.
Yeah.
He finds Hattie and he goes to her home. And it's booby-trapped and he has to fight a load of people.
Yeah.
Who I presume are looking for Hattie, but it's never completely sure. It just seems like Jason Statham turns up anywhere he's contractually obliged to fight at least 8 men who all take turns. So yeah, and Hobbs actually encounters Hattie.
Yeah, he was disguised herself.
She's on the run. She's disguised. It's a small scene, but it's quite nicely choreographed. Their physical exchanges. They basically lightheartedly fight, if there's such a thing. Hobbs and Hattie have a little fight, and little moments like he pulls a crash helmet off, which she's put on, and her hair comes away with it because she's wearing a dark wig and things like that. He's just basically trying to sort of bring her in. So Shaw has a massive fight in his house. Again, all very choreographed pretty well and hitting guys with like the toaster and things like that. So it's okay. And she's taken in for questioning. And if you look at a plot synopsis, it says CIA headquarters. I'm presuming the CIA do have an outpost in the UK then, because this is still London.
Maybe they do. Maybe they don't. Who knows?
Yeah.
Top secret black site.
Yeah. It's probably a B&Q.
Wicks.
So yeah, he's questioning her and getting nowhere, and she's sort of giving it a bit of sass and what type of agent she is, and he is rather, and how you're sort of the brawny type, and then he quotes, who does he quote, Nietzsche or something like that, to prove he's a brainy as well. And that joke will come back later because she's like, "Who's that, Bruce Lee?" And it's like Nietzsche. And there's going to be a flip of that joke later, and how we'll all laugh.
Who's that, Nietzsche? No, Bruce Lee.
Yeah, well, it's going to be a funny moment. I'm going to enjoy that.
So this is where I think it's where she actually, for me, came across like genuine star, where like Rock saying, if she moves, shoot her in the face. Shouldn't have missed twice. And she's like, no, can't do that. Sorry. All that exchange.
She's got a bit of sass about her. I think I seem to have I had the thought today of what I'm going to say. And then it occurred to me, I think I said it during the Mission Impossible series. If you were making Pulp Fiction now, she's Mia Wallace. She's just got that sort of self-comportment and screen presence and sass and attractiveness and everything, and she has a history of wearing wigs and stuff like that. She could be like a peak Uma Thurman type. I like her. I do like her quite a lot. I just think she has star power about her. I'd like to see a little bit more of what her range is, because I've only seen her in a couple of things. I'm sure there's more out there from her that I've not seen.
Yeah.
But I just think there's something there, and I'm just interested to see what it is. She's done some national theatre and stuff like that, and if I take a glance down through, she's going to be in the next Mission Impossible. But there's very little else I've seen. She's been in some stuff on TV. She played Princess Margaret in The Crown, but I only saw a couple of episodes of that.
No, that's really good. I recommend watching that. That's a good show.
And she's played Stella Kowalski in A Streetcar Named Desire for the National Theatre. Okay.
Classic show with Gillian Anderson.
What, she was in it as well, was she, on the National Theatre?
I do believe so.
Okay. Yeah. So, she breaks out of her handcuffs, and basically Shaw turns up, says it's his sister, and then Brixton attacks.
Yeah.
Did they just randomly decide to name him after a part of London? I mean,
yeah.
Did they think, what are some London names? They nearly went with Croydon.
Yeah, Croydon, Brixton, so it's South London. Kind of Brixton. Where else?
Hyde.
Yeah, in there somewhere.
Oh my God, it's Bermondsey.
It's Peckham.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, Peckham.
London, Miami, Peckham. Oh.
Yeah. Anyway, so you have the scene where they break it. They try and get Hattie because she's got the virus.
Yeah, they're trying to get a way to get the virus out of her. I don't know what to make of this action sequence, because it does finish with them falling hell of a distance and being absolutely fine. I suppose it was an attempt to do something a bit different.
Yeah.
Running down the side of the building. At least they're wearing harnesses. I mean, if they were running down the side of a building without them, all CG, I'd think, oh yeah, you've probably gone a bit far there, folks. It's like most of this film, I didn't really care, and it went on a bit too long, and they were all falling a bit too far, and they had so many reverses that I just thought, just resolve this. There's a plot point at the end of this. They either take her and Hobbs and Shaw have to get her back, or they don't. Let's fucking, which is it to be? And that's not a good sign during an action sequence. And I've come to realize over the years of doing this show, action's not the problem. It's the point of the action, the writing of the action, the pacing of the action. Do it right, it's great. But this is just bored. This kind of bored me. But I did appreciate they were trying to do something a bit different.
Yeah. So they fight. Brixton finds out he's all pretty unbeatable.
Yeah.
And they establish the guns the bad guys' guns they kind of activate with special touch.
Yeah, because that's what you want. Guns you can hack. I mean, fucking hell. Anyway, right. We get to the only regular car chase of the film.
Mm-hmm.
Really, there's car sequences at the end, but it's not quite the same.
And
they're not.
Rock looks ridiculous in a big sports car. I don't know whether they.
Somebody pointed out that if you combine their their widths, their chest measurements, and stuff like that, they wouldn't fit in that car together. It's a McLaren. I forget which model of McLaren, but it's a McLaren, and it's not designed for big people. Full stop. And the two of them would not get in together. Jason Statham might be able to. If Jason Statham owned one in his life, he could get in there with his wife. That would be fine. But he couldn't get in there with Dwayne Johnson. And it doesn't look right. But at least it's a car scene. And again, I just think, when in the lifetime of this podcast have I ever said, "Oh, why can't we have a car chase there?" But I think it's just something about it's fundamental to this series, and we get one car chase, and it's really fucking underwhelming. It's got one good shot in it, which is the final shot where Elba goes through the side of a bus.
Yeah.
Apart from that, it is really fucking underwhelming. And I couldn't believe. I think I must have misread my watch in the cinema on my phone, because I looked for the time, because the film had felt like it had gone on for a while, and we finally got to a car chase. And I remember saying to you, I don't know that it was on air, I think I said it off air to you, I said, I can't believe it was like 50 minutes till we got to a car chase. I'm watching it today, it's not, it's about 35 minutes or 38 minutes or something like that. Yeah, it's less than I thought, unless again I'm losing my eyesight and didn't read the fucking display properly. I'm sure it was 30 something minutes, but in the cinema I thought it was about 50. Whichever is the case, it was a long time to wait for a car chase that ain't that good. Don't they immediately Elba gets back to base without her because he's been crashed through the side of a bus, which again is the one decent bit of the sequence. I mean, things like Dwayne holding a guy out until they hit a wall. I thought the timing of that. You know, I just thought even when you picked him off the bike, you dislocated your shoulder. So they're just pushing this. They've been pushing it since film, well, all the way through really, but particularly since film 7. That Hobbs is pretty much indestructible, and if he is hurt, it's not that serious. Because ironically, he got hurt in that film, but he should have been fucking killed. Yeah, he goes back to base and says basically, he makes his crew basically frame them as wanted men.
Yeah.
And it comes up on like Piccadilly Circus on the big displays and things like that, because
Which I'm not sure that ever happens though. Like, don't broadcast news on Piccadilly Circus, do they?
I don't think so. I don't know if there's ever exceptions. I mean, if you were in Piccadilly Circus on election night, the exit poll might come up. I don't know.
Yeah. But other than that...
But I don't think you get, J. Jonah Jameson revealing that Peter Parker's Spider-Man on there. But that's kind of what it is. I don't know, but it serves the film okay, though it's very convenient. London's quite a big place. The chance of you being staring right at Piccadilly Circus when that happens is not that likely. It's like hearing someone's in New York and then just immediately ordering something to be displayed in Times Square so they'll see it. It's like, who told you they were in Times Square? Anyway, right? So they're now wanted criminals. And
yes.
What's this fucking Eddie Marsan thing about?
Yeah, so he's like the scientist who developed it.
Finding him, because they seem to know something about a Russian newspaper, and I'm like, I didn't grasp how they know that.
It was the only they spotted he had this certain newspaper, and there's only one place that sort of sells that.
Right, so it wasn't that something he'd written was in that newspaper or anything. It was just there's some shot of him somewhere carrying that newspaper. Conveniently, it's sold at one stand in the whole of London.
Yeah. And
all they have to do is buy and operate that stand until he turns up for his newspaper. Which, he's gone on holiday for a fortnight, so... Jason Statham stands there selling Health and Efficiency magazine for fucking 2 weeks.
Now that I'll watch.
Packet of polos, my dear. Okay, yeah, it's like, imagine if that had been the film he didn't turn. So conveniently, he turns up right away, and they, take him off to talk to him.
Yes.
And he created the virus as a way to spread vaccines. Was he hoping everyone would get infected by airborne vaccines?
Well, I thought he was like, well, I was like, into it on that, I was a believer, but I kind of,
No, I'm sure he says, no, they weren't what I thought they were. I developed it. I thought they wanted this from me. I was developing it to distribute vaccines. And I'm thinking, okay, so say you've got a flu vaccine. If I'm around you and you sneeze, I catch your vaccine, so I don't have to bother.
No, I think what it is like, it's that kind of Mission Impossible 2 plot, isn't it? Where they like create a virus and you create a vaccine and you get rich selling the vaccine. Whereas, I think that's what he thought it was. But it turned out like no, they just wanted to kill out.
He did say they reprogrammed it, so there was something about distribution of vaccines. Yeah. I'm not going to argue it too hard because I don't think
it's worth it.
I don't think it's worth it. The point is, it's the film telling us I look like a bad guy, but listen to me, I'm not.
Yeah.
But I am bloody clever. And of course, it's to deliver the exposition that it's going to. The capsules will dissolve in her in a really specific time frame. Because if you swallow something like that into your stomach or gets into your bloodstream, we all process everything at the exact same rate to the second. And you can, once it does that, she becomes infected and the virus is airborne, so she'll infect everyone around us. So it'll be a worldwide pandemic within a week. Can you imagine if this would have been due to come out in like April or May?
It would be pushed back, wouldn't it, indefinitely?
Yeah, I don't know. We'd never be ready to watch it. It didn't bother me watching it. I can disassociate it from what's going on at the moment.
It's one of those things, isn't it? It's kind of, it's a well-worn path. It's an trodden, it's a sort of hackneyed storytelling trope, isn't it? Pretty much. It just so happens that happened this year in 2020. We are dominated by a virus that has affected the world. So, but yeah, it's just one of those things, really, isn't it?
So
virus is quite a common sort of plot point, anyway.
Yeah, it's a common plot point.
Yeah, but you don't see it in a blockbuster every year.
No, it's fairly uncommon.
What happened? But yeah, he's told that. So basically, they've got two options. One is to burn her, and I mean burn her down to ash. They're immediately no on that one. And the second option is there's a machine that will take it out of you. But it's in the most impossible to get to place. So they've got to go to Moscow. And they've got plenty of time, it's all right. So they've been told they've got a certain number of hours. So they immediately go into a pub or underground in a pub where he has a load of computers, a load of cars, and a pool table.
And a rumpus room.
And a bar.
Yeah. This place looks amazing.
He stands there and immediately creates new passports for them. Now, the cover for Dwayne Johnson looks like he's dressed a bit like I imagine Bing Crosby might have done on the golf course. But that's a guess. But he calls him Mike Oxmall, as in Mike Oxmall. So that's for a big laugh at like customs. That in itself, fine. You're not going to get held up for having a name that's a euphemism. Unless it's something really that is never a name. Although whether Oxmall is a surname, no idea. But he does something to his security level, so the Rock will get taken away and get like an anal cavity search. They're on the clock. It's just like, why would you piss around with this sort of stuff now?
He just doesn't want Rock on with him, really. That's it.
Right. Okay. That probably answers the point. It's just, it just struck me as like, it's a joke when you've already had the joke. The joke was Mike Oxmall. Anal cavity searches, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So just hold him up so he doesn't catch the plane. And then...
Yeah.
I'll sort out with my sister. We'll sort it out.
So they get on the plane and they're talking about, like, he's going on about fucking her sister. And they're bickering so much that Kevin Hart comes and talks to them.
And breaks it up.
He's hardly ever in it, isn't it? He's like a cameo role.
I don't know what made them
I totally forgot he was in this film. I do apologise.
I don't know what made them think let's go get Kevin Hart. I don't mind him. I don't mind him in this.
He's a little bit like sort of the Q, isn't he? He's kind of got all the gadgets, got all the things that they'll need. Or not. I don't know.
Well, he gives a token which can get them onto any of the Star Destroyers. Oh no, sorry.
Yeah, hold on a minute.
They're immediately able to tell he's an air marshal because everyone in this series immediately pegs everybody they ever meet as like exactly what they are. It's okay. But yeah, I mean, even I was thinking at this point, I know it's kind of a comedy, but the tone's all over the place anyway, because we're talking about deadly viruses and one of them might be dead in a few hours. they're on a night flight. I mean, it's dark on this plane, and they're having a row, and you just think like,
The people in the seats are not going to turn around and go, shh.
it's like grow up for fuck's sake. This is not like charming. This is not Riggs and Murtaugh. This is shit. That's the word I was looking for. Shit.
I get the impression Dave didn't like this film.
Yeah, I get that impression too.
It's just everything they're trying is not really working. And
Yeah.
the trouble is, because I can see the appeal of these two together, and I quite like Vanessa Shaw, and there's some talent behind the camera, I'm just thinking, like,
Should be better.
it just should be better. And I just think, like, I appreciate that when you put these two together, the chalk and cheese aspects, but they're both cheese, really, do you know what I mean, would be in play. I expect there's going to be some bickering and shit-talking, but it's excessive shit-talking. And I know it's not real, but when you're doing it on a night flight, me as a viewer, instead of going, look at those two, I'm going, what a pair of fucking bellends. You know? And when he's, like, taunting him about fucking his sister, I'm thinking, that's not particularly funny.
It's not particularly Hobbs-like, though, is it?
And it's not particularly Hobbs exactly. He's been relatively asexual in this series. Now, he's got a daughter. He's not asexual, but he is respectful of the females around him. Always. He worked with Mrs. Hemsworth for quite a while, and she's like an attractive lady, and there was never any hint of that. He was like a mentor figure and a boss. So it's not working, and they were having a barbecue at the end of the last film. Guys, fucking think through what their relationship is and why they're falling out all of a sudden. Because you've just shat on Fast 8, which weren't good anyway. So they go straight to Moscow, and then they cut to Moscow. And meet...
Do, 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 do.
It's a little bit like that.
I can just imagine when they get to Samoa, just a load of question marks coming up on the screen because, like, sorry, we don't know much about that culture. So they meet with a bunch of like fit ladies because that's how it works. Who,
That's another
like,
trope of the series.
give them guns and shoes. I saw shoes there.
What
And-
was odd though is like because obviously this is like Statham's like you know one of his girlfriends kind of thing,
Presumably.
and they they have a good old snog, and Hobbs and Hattie are sat there going like shocked as if they what, he kisses other women, really? Do you know, it's like
Yeah.
it's like why
Their reaction is like he's just bent her over the table in front of them.
Yeah.
It's like it's a kiss. All right, it's going on a bit, but like even so, and again, it's going on a bit. It's like you guys, you feel like tapping your watch. Like, come on. And then they're given Halo equipment because, like, that's something you could do without any practice. Because that's everybody in law enforcement must have done loads of Halo drops.
Yeah.
And then so they go to like do this Halo jump, high altitude, low opening, and The Rock decides to just set Staths off. It's like this is theoretically at least quite dangerous, right?
I mean, look, if they went for more of a more flat out comedy vibe, and it's just like the two of them just like doing all this stuff all the time, like got this really sort of time sensitive, like dangerous mission we need to do for
But
the
it's
sake of the
serious
world.
1 minute and fucking ridiculous the next.
Yeah, but if it was like okay, that's the setup, and they just keep like dicking around by trying to screech each other over. Do you know what I mean? It's like that could be quite funny.
Yeah, like Riggs getting Murtaugh to do the fucking chicken dance in his pants.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And I thought I saw an error in the CG because they go down like this chimney, don't they? But it looked from the wide shot like one of them missed, and then it cut to like inside and they were both landing. So whatever. And I'm going to shut up now because I've got nothing to say about any of this. This whole Russia thing is just boring.
Well, yes, basically the plan is they break in, they do a Mick Jagger, as they call it.
Yeah, that's a running joke that doesn't really work. It's flashbacks to them as children, isn't it?
Yeah, so they set up like Hattie to go in and sort of say she's been captured because they want the virus out of her, but they end up getting captured because they're expected. Hattie manages to escape. Yeah, so then there's like a fight. The scientist guy gets killed because he helps out, and yeah, there's basically sort of big chase out. The whole place blows up, and I was like thinking, well, sure, if one of the things is like you want the virus to get out of Hattie, surely you let Brixton do that first, and then fuck shit up after that. Surely that's the plan.
Yeah, he's got it, but at least it's out in the open. But anyway, yeah. I don't know.
It's in case you take the time sensitive issue out of it.
Then they were like tied up together and electric shocks, and they're finally learning they've got to work together because the Mick Jagger gets referenced. And I just lost interest at this point because I thought we were in Act 3. We are, but it turns out there's a fucking Act 4 as well.
This goes beyond.
Well, yeah, because I thought this was like the denouement because I'd lost track of time entirely. This is the first time I've seen it. This time, obviously not. I thought this was all building to like, Daniel Craig shooting a can of Dr. Pepper and the whole place blowing up. But then that had another act as well.
If I could just concentrate the sunbeams with my magnifying glass on this.
Yeah. I thought about that the first time I saw it, when I saw Statham in that nightclub with a bottle of champagne. So I thought he's going to use the cork of that to blow the place up. There's this sequence where they're escaping from the place and Statham's not on one vehicle and then he is, and Hattie climbs in the window and then she's momentarily straddling the rock and it's like, ooh. No romantic tension between them at all, but she's momentarily wet, and I just don't fucking care. They've got the kit though. They've got the kit, but it's broken.
Yeah, but they know the one guy who can fix it, and it's my brother who last time I heard was a mechanic. So
yeah, it's my brother who was a mechanic in 1993. So if we go there now, because I think we've got plenty of time to fly to Samoa. So that's what they do. And I couldn't believe it. I was just like, shit, they're going to go somewhere else now. I thought this was the end of the film. They're now going to go somewhere else. And we've hinted it's Hobbs's family. So theoretically, you're going to have to like introduce us to his family at least. Oh, fuck, this is going to drag on for ages now, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, if they go into Samoa, nothing, again, I don't want to knock his pride in his culture, but I was aware he was a producer on the film, so I thought, oh, is this going to be a load of self-indulgent bollocks? I bet we see another Haka. And, yeah, so they fly to Samoa. Again, it's like, how much time have they got? Until she's plugged in, we've never any idea. The only ticking clock on her ever becomes how long it's going to take to get that out of her, as opposed to how long before she's like lethal, which is just like, well, why give a fucking time frame in the first place?
It's ridiculous, isn't it?
Well, it is if you're going to fly across the globe twice.
Yeah.
And if you're going to do that, you don't give 30 or 40 hours, you give like 72 or something.
Exactly.
It's always convenient.
Doesn't make a lick of sense.
And they get there and his brother hits him. And eventually he tells Hattie the story. I'm jumping forward a bit. The story is...
Yeah, let's skip right ahead.
Well, no, I don't mind coming back to this, but the point from him being hit was he broke up the family by grassing up their father because their father was using them on, like, robberies and that sort of thing, we assume. He was a criminal gang, and he used to take the kids on it. Only he could see that they were being used, so eventually shot his own father, and the family haven't really spoken to him since, except mother clearly holds no grudge whatsoever. And that's it, really. They've got to get ready for Shaw coming to them. How does Shaw know where they are? Is there a tracker in this thing?
No. They brought Shaw with him. Shaw and Hattie with him. You're thinking of Brixton.
Sorry, that's what I meant. How does how does Brixton know?
It probably would have explained it, I'm sure.
Right. Okay. Shooting schedule. Day 46, Samoa. Right. On my way. So they've got to get ready, Skyfall style, for an attack on the homestead. And just like Skyfall, the gun cabinet's empty.
God, it is as well.
So, just like, if you remember in Skyfall, what Bond and M did was strip to the waist and go out and do a tribal dance. So yeah, they've got to prepare for the arrival of Shaw, which is going to involve them using, I don't know, fucking baseball bats and the power of dance.
And they hack the system, don't they? So they can't fire their weapons.
Not for 6 minutes, because again, this film loves its ticking clocks. Why would you have guns you can fucking hack?
Yeah, that's silly.
That's just mental.
That's kind of going into the X-Men territory.
Palm prints, yeah. I mean, if you use that old hackneyed Bond plot device of saying,
Yeah,
like, you've got to be on my crew to have the right palm print or whatever. So when Hattie went to shoot Brixton and couldn't, it's like, it's not encoded to you. But no, you can hack into their guns. I don't even know if that's a thing anywhere.
No. But no, cybergenetically enhanced.
So they repair, they do something with the fucking cars, which are all shit.
Yeah.
They hack into the computer so that they can get the guns locked out for 6 minutes, which might be all we need. Because that's Jason Statham, born in Derbyshire, but sounds like, Elephant and Castle. He didn't grow up anywhere near London, but there you go. Because I thought, where's he from in London then with that accent?
No, he's kind of got where he's been in America. Obviously, I think he's kind of developed a bit of a transatlantic accent.
I can't hear
as
that.
Well.
It sounds southeast to me.
It sounds kind of all over the place. So,
but he was born in Derbyshire and he grew up there and Norfolk, which has my accent, but it goes up at the end of sentences instead of down. Right. So it's a bit strange. But anyway, so they're going to hack into the guns. They've also fixed the device that gets plugged into Hattie, and it works, and she's got 30 minutes to stay alive and away from them to take it out. And after that, I don't give a fuck. Something to do with cars and the power of Dwayne Johnson's biceps.
Oh, it's always down to his biceps.
Yeah, he basically becomes like Captain America in the Winter Soldier during this. He can just hold,
like ultra hero.
Just hold no, I just mean holding the fucking helicopter down and stuff.
It's crazy. It's an epic stunt though, definitely.
This all bored the shit out of me. I just wanted the film to finish by now. I didn't care.
Yeah, again, this is for me, this is one of the endings of the movie. You kind of think, well, okay, yeah, it's an amazing, balls-to-the-wall stunt. Yeah. Visuals really good, you can't really see the joints too much. But I kind of thought, right, well, you could probably end the film here. This is, one of the many endings of the movie. They could kind of... This is another cut-off point.
I would have just have the fucking helicopter crash. But no, they've got to have the face-to-face where we get final confirmation the two of them have learnt to work together.
Yes.
So it's a really kind of so-what fucking fist fight with this guy who's...
there's no kind of real sense of consequence, really, is there?
It all slows down after every punch, though, doesn't it?
It does.
Well, part of that is because he can see them coming, and he's got like a display in his eyes and that sort of thing. They call it out early in the film. He's like the Terminator, and he kind of is. He's even got like a display.
Yeah, he's got the heads-up display, hasn't he? He can kind of anticipate every move
and they're not quite sure whether they want to keep this character. To cut a long story short, they end up working together. They beat him up, and he fucking dies. That's it. Right.
But yeah, it's not at their hands though. It's one of those things. He's kind of shut down.
Yeah, but they've beaten him.
Yeah,
and the Eteon
underwhelming.
And the Eteon voice is saying, "I'll be back, Gadget, next time." And then that's basically it. We have a few cutaway scenes of them like breaking the mum out of prison.
Or about to. They take a
Yeah.
cake to her that's got C4 in it. And how long have you worked here? Because she did that early in the film to somebody because she can pounce on sort of inexperience. And fucking Ryan Reynolds in another scene where the film wants to set up, but that's not the end of the story. There's worse to come. That's all they want to tell us.
There's a new virus out there.
But
Oh,
he
by the way, I
fucking
stopped the guy real quick.
blathers on for ages. For what's a credit scene, he blathers on forever. It doesn't melt your inside. This is your outside. Your fit. Shut up. That's it, isn't it?
That's pretty much it, yeah.
Oh, Hugh Janus. Yeah, he gets him back for the Mike Oxmore joke. That's it. Final thoughts. Fucking rubbish. I don't like this film very much. It's not as hateful as some. I've likened it to Rise of Skywalker in a few places. I had more problems with Rise of Skywalker. That doesn't even hold together as a fucking story. And the ticking clock in that is far, far stupider. But nothing about it really works, and it should have done, and that's a shame. Statham and Dwayne Johnson both have bad films on their records, and I don't expect them to knock it out of the park every time. But we've seen the dynamic between these two characters. We've seen... I like Dwayne Johnson's character in the series, by and large. I think it's really... he inhabits just an all-round good guy. And the writers have got decent things on their records, and, it's just like... This is the director of the first John Wick film. Albeit not named, but everyone knows they were co-directors on it. And it doesn't work. The humour doesn't work. The whole setup doesn't work because you've got to forget Fast 8 ever happened. The filming of it is uninventive, particularly dialogue scenes where it's just, well, let's point the camera at him now, and now let's point the camera at her. None of it makes sense. They fly all over the world. It's got Becca's right. It just so many points where you go, that'll do now, and then it goes on a bit more. And it's just kind of self-indulgent nonsense, and it's the same length as like the last 2 or 3 Fast films, but it felt a clear half an hour longer. I didn't enjoy this. I know a lot of people did, but I just thought this is lazy. If your whole idea is to put these two in front of a camera and comedy and action gold follows, well, it's not that easy. If it was that easy, we'd all be fucking doing it. That's it really from me.
Yeah, I can't really add much more. I mean, yeah, it's just this film really did have quite a lot going for it as kind of a spin-off into the series, which has entertained us now for a lot of years, a big chunk, definitely since the early 2000s for sure. And now it seems that this spin-off is going to breathe new life into the series. It's a great cast, great crew, interesting director. Just kind of falls flat, really. I mean, there are sort of little pockets of sort of humour, strong performances from a few standout cast members. But so yeah, if you kind of if you want kind of action, fast-paced action, amazing set pieces, this film is not for you. If you're expecting very much the same of what we come to expect from the Fast and Furious series, this is kind of like it doesn't directly tick the sort of the boxes there. I mean, you've got some reference to some classic cars. There's certainly big vehicles, and some definitely impressive set pieces and stunts for sure. And again, you kind of got a glow popping nature of it as we come to expect from the series now. But apart from that, it's probably about as far removed from the origins of the Fast and Furious series as we can perhaps get without going into kind of like Bond, Mission Impossible territory, or even going into realms of fantasy or comic book movies, for example. There's so much going for it. It just kind of felt a bit like, that's a shame.
I found myself missing the regular crew. I don't know.
Yeah, likewise. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, Chris.
Not really much more to say than I already said. Really, it's just a bit of disappointment. Didn't hate it, but But with the cast and the talent and the potential,
that's the point. You rate against what you think you're going to get to some degree. We have covered many worse films than this, and I'm being probably excessively harsh on this. But whilst I don't expect high art, a Hobbs and Shaw film should be better than this.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it should at least kind of live up to those expectations.
And that's all you got to say in it. So, but however, I don't feel I know enough.
Yeah, I mean, I'm slating what I don't understand, Chris, and you should never do that. It's the first rule. You know, don't shit talk what you don't understand. It's up there with don't touch what you can't afford. So I haven't touched
and
either.
You had your
them,
mitts all around something.
Yeah, I immediately dropped what was in my hand when I heard that. I'm hoping Becca can give me more knowledge so that I can pick something up and give it a bloody good seeing to. or something. I may not have thought that through.
Becca, thoughts?
Oh dear. So, yeah, I was trying to find out like interesting tidbits about this film. No, but quite interesting. Yeah, fun fact number one, obviously Dwayne Johnson tried to get Jason Momoa to play his brother in the film, but he was unable to due to scheduling conflicts. So in steps Roman Reigns, legendary WWE superstar.
Who I've never heard of before.
Who's his cousin?
Yeah, they're related in cousins in real life, which I think is pretty cool. I think that's quite interesting.
It pays having your a relative.
Well, it does exactly. I can't tell you what they are, but apparently he does some of his finishing moves in the film. Yeah. Sadly, that's all.
Giant haystacks are both dead now, aren't they? So they couldn't have stepped in.
No, sadly not. Let's have a look. Yeah, fun fact number two: the Eteon, or Eteon, however you pronounce it, the HQ building. Obviously, you mentioned McLaren earlier on in the film. So the HQ of the villainous organisation is actually the McLaren Technology Centre, where the Formula One team is based. Fun fact number three: this is the third Fast and Furious film not to feature Vin Diesel after Too Fast, Too Furious and Tokyo Drift. Fun fact number four: during the London chase scene, Brixton's motorbike changes shape whilst he's sliding under the massive truck lorry thing, and in that kind of like during that transition, you hear a bit of a sort of very techy sound effect. It's from the Transformers cartoon, and it made its way into the live action film as well. Not so much a fan of the series of films, but definitely loved the cartoon growing up, and I was like, I recognise that sound effect. And yeah, it's from Transformers, which is pretty cool, as the bike literally transforms around him. Fun fact number five, as we mentioned a little bit during the show as well, the voice of the director of Eteon. Sorry if I mispronounced that. I'm really rubbish at these things. I
saw the film 8 hours ago, and I've got no fucking idea.
No,
so I won't worry about it.
Like Chris said, it does sound like an energy company or like an electronics firm or something like that. It doesn't sound particularly menacing at all. But apparently, yeah, the voice of the director was due to be Keanu Reeves. But after discussion with the show's producers and director, they kind of felt that creatively it wasn't really the right choice. So it was left to be a composite of a few actors and actresses. But the actual identity was left open. So who knows who it will be? Hopefully, we'll find out soon.
Well, it'll either matter or it won't. This did sort of $750 million at the box office, so it's perfectly feasible there'll be another Hobbs and Shaw.
Yeah, and the sequel will probably be greenlit off the back of it.
No problem with that. I mean, it's not impossible to make a decent Fast and Furious film because we've seen them. It's not impossible to make a decent film with these two. This just isn't it.
Yeah, hopefully it'll be better next time around.
But it wasn't hateful. Just should have been better. I rank it quite low in the whole franchise. I mean, across the whole thing, I think I went in sort of thinking it was 5, 6, 7 in that order at the top, and then sort of probably 8. 4 I wasn't sure about. I thought that'd be a bit further down, but that would probably be next. And then it's probably like this in and amongst sort of 2 and 3. I'm not quite sure where it stands next to 1 because it's so different from the first one. But yeah, it's sort of in the bottom 4, if you like, out of 9 for me. Fast 5's the best film we've covered in this series for me. And it's not close particularly. 6 and 7 are good though.
Mm.
And I enjoyed 4, which surprised me because I remember seeing it once and being really bored. I've enjoyed doing the series. It just took 4 weeks to get to anything I really liked, although the first film was more enjoyable this time than I'd remembered. yeah, so that's it. Fast and Furious complete until Fast 9 comes out.
Yeah,
which
until
is-
next year.
And now
hopefully.
you're climbing the walls to get to Spider-Man.
Hey.
Spider-Man.
Chris, what you said there, you may not realise, it's quite clever because Spider-Man climbs walls.
Don't you know?
So you
Yeah, we've
just
got our
did a bit-
spidey senses
you did a bit of
tingling.
a pun then.
Yeah. Well, bugger me.
I'm not doing that, Chris.
No, you're all right.
Wit does turn me on, but not that much. Fucking hell. Yeah, but got something else we're going to do first. But anyway, that's for social media. You can find me at the Pastor Kid 1976 on Twitter.
You can find all the old episodes at cinematronics.co.uk. You can find me on Twitter at Cinematronics.
And you can find us on Twitter at Expect Us to Talk. And you can find us on many other platforms, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. Don't forget to also look for us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Podbean, and wherever you happen to draw your podcast. Don't forget, whatever platform you're on, please do kindly like us, rate us, review us, and share us. Thank you.
Yeah, share us around like the dirty whores we are.
Yes, we don't care.
Yeah.
All good. And
Yeah.
also, you can now nominate us for a Listener's Choice Award in the British Podcast Awards. I think votes close 11th of July. Just go to British Podcast Awards and click on vote, literally at the top of the page, and type in "Do you expect us to talk?" Well, there, give us a vote. Thank you. Just cram that in at the last instance.
Although, when you're finished using and abusing us, I'll accept bourbons. That's
Payments to be made in bourbons, please.
So, in
I'll
other
have
words,
custard creams.
I want either to be immortalised with the British Podcast Award or given a packet of bourbons. And I don't actually have a preference.
Well, now we know what to get Dave for Christmas.
You can't buy a bourbons, yeah. All right, Bond commentary time. Chris!
Yes, so Do You Expect Us to Talk will return with Diamonds Are Forever commentary.
Yes.